Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Now, I hope you guys aren't finding this to be a bit too bright. I haven't had Brawlhalla playing in the background in quite a bit of a while. But for this kind of video, I just decided, why not? It's been a while, so I'll just put this in the background. Now, this video isn't really something that I plan on editing too much. So if I do, then you guys lucked out, but if I don't, then you just let me explain why. Excuse me. So I posted a poll and I asked you all, I was having a bit of a writer's block, what would you like to see? And I said, would you like to see me reviewing school overall? And it won out and people that want to see that. And so this is obviously what this video is. Now, there have been a few videos when I have posted about like the education industry and whatnot, but I've never really like just done a review of school, like from elementary to high school, and what I thought about it overall. And that's what I'm going to try and like do my best to do, is give like a review. I know, a review of school. Now this is obviously going to come from where I went to school and what state I am in, because I am in the United States. So let's just start with elementary school. Now, elementary school for me personally was relatively okay. I feel like elementary school was it was like the best point of school. I never really cared for school in general, but elementary school was a bit more tolerable, I personally feel, at least. Mainly for the fact that, since you were slowly like learning and whatnot, teachers were a bit more lenient with you, and you could it was fine to learn a bit slower than other people and whatnot. Like, everyone was kind of going a bit at your pace and whatnot. And there were still obviously a lot of classes. I think that in elementary school I still had like what 5, 6 classes. I'm not positive, but I think I still had 5 or 6 classes. I can't remember exactly. It's been a considerable amount of time now that I really think about it. So I felt like that was the best point of school, which was elementary school. I went to elementary school in a few places. That being, I don't even know if it's still up now, but I think it was North Side, and then I went to like Eagles. What is it, like Eagles Charter, something like that. I can't really remember my elementary schools too well, but nonetheless, I feel like elementary school was relatively solid, and because it was more at your pace, I feel like a lot of people were able to learn a lot better in elementary school, myself included. Now, going on to middle school for me is where things started getting a bit rough. Now, my 6th grade year was probably the worst year of my life, frankly. My mother had a bunch of medical issues that was going on. So like my 6th grade year started okay, and then once the medical issues came into play, it just ruined everything. Luckily though, I was going to a decent middle school. I was going to it's called Rickards. I don't know if it's still up now. Oh yeah, I'm also in Florida, by the way. It's called like Rickards. It was a pretty nice school. Like, the school was a bit renowned, and they had a nice amount of income. So we had good amount of books, technology, and all that good stuff. That this is obviously like when technology was still getting up. Like back in those days, guys. Smartphones weren't really all over the place. They were in a way, but they were just like starting to break out. Like, to this day, I have a smartphone. Maybe I'll post a poll and I'll ask if you guys want to see a picture of it. And that was the very first smartphone that I got, and I got it in middle school. And so I'll post a poll and I'll ask you guys if you want to see a picture of that, and I'll post that into the community tab if you do want to see it that much. So technology was relatively fine at the school. Books were fine and the supplies were fine. Only issue was personally with my mother again. But another thing is like the homework really started piling on in middle school, like a really high amount. But since it was the 6th grade, like I feel like they were still kind of helping you out a bit more then, so I felt like 6th grade was a bit fine. But then we transitioned to 7th grade. Now, I did have to move from Rickards, so I didn't go to Rickards anymore. Now, for the life of me, I cannot remember the middle school that I went to afterwards, but it was pretty rough. I started getting bullied, and that wasn't really too pleasant. Now, my defense mechanism for this, I'm not trying to make this a heavy bullying, but I've always been a quiet person. But when I did talk, because I didn't talk, because I went to, like, I'll just say it, like, I went to a predominantly in the hood type of school, in the ghetto. Now, obviously, when you hear my voice, you can't necessarily determine that I lived in the ghetto, because I don't really speak it. So, put this into a, obviously, middle school environment, and you can obviously how that's going to lead to bullying. That and the fact that I just overall just carried myself with a certain amount of respect that you didn't really find at the time. So once again, oddball out, so time to pick on them. Now, my defense mechanism was to just be quiet, because like that's just what I was really good at. I don't really talk a lot, believe it or not. And this is where a lot of issues went, because once again I was going to a new school. I can't remember what it is again, but my gosh, the bullying started happening. And since I transitioned, I was never really able to like get work done, because I transitioned like I think in the middle of the year, so like I had missed out on very important like key beginning elements of what that school was teaching me. So I was trying to get it done, but I could never do it. So my grades started falling and whatnot, and I just could never do it. Now, I still somehow went to the next grade, which was 8th grade, and 8th grade was a bit better. I met one of my very good friends, and I still know him to this day. And he really helped me like get through there, like aside from the bullying and whatnot. So 8th grade was a bit better, I feel. And overall I was able to, get through relatively fine. The bullying just really happened in 7th grade for the most part. Now here's where it gets really rough. High school. So we move again, and the high school that I end up having to go to is this high school called Carroll City Senior High in Miami. Now, if you are not familiar with that, this high school was so infamous that it was so renowned for like the nonsense that would happen there. Virtually every week, our high school would be on the news because something was going down, whether it was drugs, guns, prostitution in the school. I kid you not, a stupid amount of crap happened at that school, and I do not know how I was able to deal with it. Obviously, this started taking a toll on me. And it wasn't as easy as just, like, not being quiet anymore, because, like, for some reason, I guess teachers were so, like, what's the word? They were so done, and they had given up on the students so much that they would just start giving the students a hard time, no matter who it was, because so many of them were, like, just like that. So I couldn't just, like, not talk anymore, because sometimes the teachers would start picking on you for some reason. I don't know why, I don't know what their problem was, why. I do know it's the fact that they gave up on the kids and whatnot, and I can understand why, although I don't agree with it and whatnot. So they started picking on people, and since they started doing that, like, I realized that I couldn't necessarily stay quiet for forever, and so when I did speak, I had to force myself to learn. I don't mean it in a demeaning way, guys, but I have to say it. I had to force myself to speak ghetto. Like, I had to learn how to be like, what's up? Like, I got nothing against you. I've got nothing against you. It's no shots. I love you, King. I love you. You know who you are. I love you, man. I got nothing against you. And I'm not saying you're ghetto. I'm just saying, like, speaking with the slang or whatnot, like, I've got nothing against it. I'm just saying, for safety reasons at Carroll City, I had to force myself to basically, like, speak slang and ghetto and whatnot. Basically, the usual stuff, like putting N-word in every sentence, a bunch of cussing, plenty of that, because you gotta cuss every sentence when you're going to a school like that. And so, I pretty much had to do that. and this really took a toll. Like, there were so many times where I just wanted to drop out, and that was just the ninth grade. And because the teachers had given up on the kids, they really just did not care at that point. You basically had to teach yourself. They would just put something on the board and just sit there. I kid you not. They would just put something on the board. If you do it, you do it. You don't, you don't. And most of the kids didn't, but these teachers could not stand the idea of having to deal with those same kids again, so they would just pass them. And so we pretty much had to teach ourselves. And this really showed with math for me personally, because I'm just not good at the complex math. Like, I'm fine with numbers, but when they start putting letters there, then that's where I get very confused. And I could not pass the algebra test, like the ELC, yeah, end of course. I could not pass that test until like the 12th grade. But going to like 10th and whatnot, like 10th was pretty rough as well, frankly. And then, because like a lot of crazy crap happened like in my life at that time, 11th got even worse with that, because like I literally had safety issues going on in my life that I had to worry about because of the neighborhood. Because not only was I going to a bad school, but I was also in a very bad neighborhood, and I had very rough things going on in my life at that time. So it really took a toll on me. But I was able to get through because I met, some really good friends there, and they were able to help carry me through. Now, 11th grade year was obviously, like I said, same kind of thing going on with a bunch of life stuff and whatnot. And like the grades and whatnot, I was still able to keep them relatively up, but some classes I just couldn't for the life of me just like get the hang of being like, math most for the most part again, because teachers just really didn't care. Now, my 12th grade year, like, goodness, man, like also pretty rough, but I was able to get through. My 12th grade year, I did meet, like, possibly the only teacher I do respect. Well, two, frankly. And he was like an economics teacher. And he was teaching, like, the fact that, listen, like, economics is messed up, and politics is, you've got a bunch of politically corrupt people and stuff. So I greatly respect that teacher for at least just actually teaching, frankly, and just being cool. His work wasn't overbearing. He was still trying to help the kids and whatnot. He hadn't given up on the kids and whatnot. So I do respect him a considerable amount. And he was elderly, believe it or not. The guy looked like he was about in his mid to late 60s. I apologize if you hear dogs, but nothing I can do about that. Apologize. He was in his like mid to late 60s, and he was still, at least that's what he looked like. Maybe he was younger, but that's what he looked like. And he was still obviously like helping, and I greatly respected him for that. Now, 12th grade year for me got a bit rough because the school just started getting even worse. Like, we were on the news all the time, like every week. Had a bunch of like shootings start going on there. Like, it got out of hand, man. Now, I was still able to get everything done, and I got all my credits together and whatnot, so I was able to graduate. However, I had enough of that school, and I did not want to be bothered with that ceremony. So I just like waited, and then like, I got my degree, like, the next couple of days, just went back to that school for the final time. My mom unfortunately couldn't pick me up, so I had to take the walk home. But that was the walk of accomplishment for me, and I was finally out of that. Finally. So I kind of hope that like gave you an idea of what I think of it. Now, here's the overall thing about school. I really didn't like school for the most part, for a few reasons. Personal reasons being in my life what was going on at the time during school, but another was because for me, school never really seemed to teach me anything. School seemed to teach me that I need to study what's in this book to pass a test for something that's possibly, for the most part, maybe going to be useful in my life a handful of times, when I should be learning really important stuff. Like, I feel like the extracurricular activities or the things that would greatly benefit us. Like, who wouldn't benefit from knowing how to, like, build a small, like, house, if you will? Who wouldn't benefit from that? Who wouldn't benefit from learning how to fix their car themselves? You know, a lot of the extracurricular activities at school, to me, seem like that's what we should be learning for the most part. Don't get me wrong, knowing how to write an essay is good. Knowing how to do your math as well and whatnot, that's good. But I'm not going to do that on a consistent basis. I may not be working right now, but when I apply for a job, I don't constantly write essays and whatnot, you know? And even if I do apply for a job, like, I'm not going to be writing essays for the most part. I don't know many people who do. And when I do math, it's usually something simple and not algebra, and I can just put that in my calculator. It seems to me like what I learned wasn't really that useful, and me being 21 right now, everything that I learned in school is just really not helping me in real life at this moment. The only thing that's kind of occasionally helping is writing skills when people want me to, like, you know, write cover letters and whatnot. But that's about it. Nothing else is really paying off for the most part. Now, I'm not telling you guys not to, like, you know, study in school and whatnot, but as someone who's, you know, just new to the adult life and whatnot, like, none of this crap's really paying off, you know. Literally nothing is paying off that they hammered in. Oh, you're gonna need these skills, because they would love to, like, tell you that constantly, but from what I'm living right now, you know, aside from the whole, like, corona stuff going on, even before that, I was not utilizing these skills, and it's not because of, like, you know, what I'm doing. It's just because they aren't that useful. I mean, what do I have to say? They're not that useful. You know, knowing how to put x plus b equals dc squared, blah 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 blah, that's not exactly useful in the everyday life, you know. So, with that being said, I just find myself of school. It really, for me to say that that's actually useful, there really needs to be some really big changes to how school works and whatnot. Because the way I see it is just, you just cram, pass this test, and you have to just study about this stuff that is not really going to be relevant to your life. That's just how I feel about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Now, the question that some people ask, and this is like, I think, the first video that I posted, and, you know, some people will still occasionally ask me, oh, what about college? College, I do not plan on going to college. I do have an interest in certain classes, but I have an interest in a handful, probably 3 tops, of classes. That is not enough to warrant me spending 2 to 4 years, you know, cramming again so that I pass tests for skills that aren't really going to be something that I'm using on a daily basis, and I care mainly about 3 things, and I'm going to be taking 8 things. I really do not want to deal with that stress. I have several friends who went to college and they have just dropped out because they don't think that they couldn't handle it. My friend, he was convinced. He had a scholarship and everything. He was convinced that he was going to do his college. He just couldn't take it, man. He dropped out, and now he's just trying to get, like, you know, some police work. I cannot say I blame him. I'm not trying to discourage you guys, but one thing that I really want to say is college is not for everyone. And when someone tries to convince you that, oh, you have to go to college, you got to understand, man, there's a lot of stuff that goes on at college that, you know, like, you know, people who are going there are, like, cheating. They're going to get laid and have parties and stuff like that. So there's a lot more to college than meets the eye. And frankly, it's not for everyone. And if you're one of those people that really just feel like, you know, you don't want to go to college, it's fine. Just make sure that you got a backup plan. But even then, you know, life's life. So your backup plan can just sometimes just be doomed from the get-go, or just not the right time. So it is what it is. Don't make it feel, don't make it feel, but don't feel like it's your fault or whatnot. And don't feel like you're useless because of that, you know. So I just want to say that. And with that being said, you know, once again, overall, I just don't really think college is something on my mind. I do have free college courses that I will take occasionally and just learn the knowledge without having to worry about debt and whatnot, because that's a whole nother video that I could talk about, which on college, about the debt and whatnot. But yeah, that's really much all I had to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's something different. It's just me talking. When I mean, I talk in all my videos, but like a complete overview of something. That's kind of something because it's not really a review necessarily. It's just me like talking about like how I feel about something that a lot of people experience. So let me know if you like this, and maybe I'll do something else on it. But hey, recommend something if you've got some recommendations that you feel like this can be a little good thing to turn into a series. So with that being said, hope that you all enjoyed. Hope you all tell me what your experience of school was. And as always, rate the video what you think it deserves. Tell me what you want to see in the future in the comments below. Feel free to check out Amino. It will be linked in the comments, as well as my BitChute linked in the About Me page of my channel. And I will see all of you in the next video. Take care.